Control is not love. A lot of people mix up control and care. They think checking up on you, telling you what to do, limiting who you talk to, or making choices for you means love. It does not. Sometimes control hides behind love. If you miss that, you can stay in a relationship for years with someone who holds on tighter and tighter and calls it care. Love should make you feel safe. It should give you room to breathe, think, grow, and be yourself. Control does the opposite. It makes you doubt your choices, your instincts, and your identity. It often sounds soft. It sounds concerned. It sounds protective. It sounds like, I only do this because I care. Real love does not need to own you. It does not need to monitor you, manage you, or shape you into someone easier to handle. Because control comes from fear. A person who tries to control you often acts from fear. Fear of losing you, fear of not being enough, fear of being hurt first, of losing control. When those feelings drive the relationship, love starts to shift. It stops feeling open. It starts feeling more guarded. Instead of facing those feelings in a healthy way, they try to contain you. They confuse possession with connection. Love does not grip harder. Love trusts. When trust leaves, control steps in. Control makes you smaller. At first, the signs are easy to miss. They want to know where you are all the time, and they get upset when you make choices without them. They can react badly when you spend time with other people. They slowly shape your life around their comfort. And over time, you feel less free. You edit yourself. You speak less openly. You second guess what you want. You shrink to avoid conflict, and that is not love. That is a cage with a soft voice. Real love does not need to win every argument. It does not need to control the pace of the relationship. It does not need to decide what you feel, think, wear, say, or become. Healthy love respects difference. It leaves space. It allows independence. It lets both people stay as a whole. The goal of love is not domination. The goal is connection. And connection does not survive when one person always tries to take the wheel. When someone controls you, honesty starts to disappear. You hide things to keep the pace. You hide things to keep the peace. You stop telling the truth because you already know the reaction. You watch your words. You watch your emotions, your needs. Slowly, the relationship loses something real. You cannot build intimacy when you live in constant fear of the response. You cannot feel close to someone when you're always managing them. That is not closeness. That is survival. Love gives you room for choice. It says, I care about you and I trust you. It says, you are allowed to be yourself. We can stay close without taking away each other's freedom. And that kind of love is not weak. It is strong enough not to panic, strong enough not to hold too tightly, enough to let the other person breathe. If love has to control, it is not secure. If it is not secure, it is not love in the way that people hope that it is. This is where it hurts. Sometimes control feels like love because it feels intense. Someone checks in all the time. They get jealous fast. They always need reassurance. They act like they cannot live without you. That intensity can look like devotion, but intensity is not always depth. Sometimes it is insecurity. Sometimes it can be obsession. Sometimes it is a need to keep what someone fears from losing. Real love does not prove itself by how tightly it holds on. It proves itself by how safely it lets you exist. Love is not meant to cage you in the name of safety. It should not make your world smaller so someone else feels less afraid. Real love has breath in it. It has patience in it. It has the strength to loosen its grip. It trusts enough to let another person stand on their own. When love turns into control, it stops seeing the person in front of it. It starts seeing only the fear inside itself. That fear can sound tender. It can even sound convincing. It can sound like devotion, but deep down, it asks for surrender instead of real connection. That is why the difference matters. Not every tight grip is cared for. Not every possessive hand is love. Sometimes space shows more love than pressure. Sometimes freedom shows more respect than control. Sometimes the bond stays strong because someone chose not to hold on so hard. Control is not love. Control is fear with a soft voice. Love does not tighten its grip when it feels unsafe. Love trusts. Control makes you smaller. Love gives you room to become who you are. Control creates pressure, silence, and distance. Love creates safety, honesty, and peace. And if a relationship only survives when one person keeps shrinking to fit inside it, then that is not love. That is control wearing love's face. There was a time when I was in a relationship, and everything I did felt like it was being measured, judged, and watched. It should have been a red flag from the beginning, but I stayed. And over time, the pressure kept building. What started as concern slowly turned into control. If I spoke to another girl, it became a problem. It did not matter if she was a childhood friend or a friend of my mother. The moment I spoke to a girl, the conversation began. The cage was real. My actions were constantly being tracked. Who I texted, who I followed, where I was, who I was with, and even why I was there. Every change of location came with the same questions. Where and with who? Even my presence around other girls became an issue. There were always quiet threats hanging in the air. Always some warning if other girls were going to be around. I was not allowed to be around any girls, while she could be around other guys. Her excuse was simple. She said I was too friendly, and she was not. What she really was saying is change who you are so I can feel more comfortable in this relationship. And that was the part that stayed with me. Not because it was loud, not because it was dramatic, but because it was constant. That kind of pressure wears you down in silence. It gets into your head. You start questioning normal things. You start wondering if your own behavior is a problem. You start editing yourself before anyone even asks. And that is how control works. It does not always arrive like a storm. Sometimes it arrives like a routine, like tension you get used to, like a line you keep crossing until you forget where it was. I was not being loved for who I was. I was being managed, watched, and adjusted. And the more I tried to keep the peace, the more I disappeared inside that relationship. What made it so dangerous is that it did not just change how I acted. It changed how I thought. It changed how I carried myself. It made me feel guilty for existing normally. And when you stay in something like that long enough, you begin to confuse control with care. You start calling restriction protection. You start calling pressure love. But deep down, you know when something is off. You know when you are not being trusted. You know when your freedom is being negotiated. You know when someone wants your presence, but not your full self. And that is the part that people miss. Control does not always try to break you all at once. Sometimes it tries to reshape you slowly, until you fit inside the version of you that makes someone else feel safe. I should have left when I first saw it, but I stayed. And staying taught me something I will never forget. Love does not ask you to become smaller. Love does not ask you to apologize for your nature. Love does not make you live under surveillance and call it devotion. If someone needs to control you to feel secure, they do not want love. They want ownership. And those are not the same thing. And they never will be.